Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Southern Reads podcast, the show where I talk about books and only books and everything book related. Today, I am joined by Miss Janet Roberts. Janet is a former global leader in cybersecurity education and is an award-winning novelist. Her books are set partially in Western Pennsylvania, where her roots run deep. Her readers know to expect a female character who awakens to the discovery of her own inner strength while facing adversity. Her recent novels, Wired for Magic, released in 2026, and What Lies We Keep, released in 2024, include elements of cybersecurity. Her Lies We Keep is the winner of 5 book awards, including the 2025 International Impact Book Award for Contemporary Fiction and Realistic Fiction, and Wired for Magic was a 2026 finalist for the Eric Hoffer Award. And today she's here. She's going to share a little bit more about her journey and what she has done for a living, share a little bit more about her background in writing, her books that she's come out with, and just what her experience in the writing in the book community has been like. So Janet, thank you so much for taking time to come on the podcast today. I'm really looking forward to hearing your story. Welcome to Southern Reads.
Thank you. No, I'm really excited to be here and talk to your listeners. In one portion of my life, I lived in the Deep South, so I have kind of a love for certain parts of it, and it's fun to be here today to talk to all your listeners.
Well, as I always like to talk with my guests is share with me kind of the backstory behind you becoming an author and what kind of inspired you to write novels.
So I've always been writing. I think it started in maybe the third or fourth grade, and like most people who would say they started young, I started writing poetry. I started writing plays. I just had all kinds of characters and ideas in my head, and I didn't know what I was doing. That's for sure. I wasn't. I grew up in Erie on Lake Erie, and it was a small city at the time. It didn't have a lot of opportunities for kids, who wanted to write. So I was a little bit on my own there. And when I finally went to college, I studied journalism because as much as I wanted to grow up and be a writer, creative writer, I am from a realistic family where you have to find a job and you have to pay the bills. And I didn't really have a mentor or another family figure in who wrote or did anything like that. So I was a bit finding my way. So I always was writing a little bit on the side, and not having a writer's community, but doing some writing through journalism. Later, I did it freelance journalism articles, and then I was just always still drawn to the creative work. At some point, when I decided to write novels, it was because I'm able to write in couple different, ways, journalism and advertising and things like that. But I don't have that kind of time, and I wanted to gravitate to what I had a passion for. And I just love fiction. I've been reading voraciously since I was a kid, and I've always been in love with novels. And so I went in the direction of my own passion. And I think you always do well if you follow your passion for something.
So when it came to your books and when you started writing, was there a particular genre that you wanted to focus on, or did you just kind of explore different genres to see where your creativeness kind of was shined the most in?
All right, I'm laughing because I'll tell you, well, I started writing novels after at around age 40 when I beat cancer. So one of the things that I did when I had a kind of a fast moving lymphoma at age 39, and I went through a lot of chemo. And another cancer survivor told me, put a list of a few things that you will do when, not if, you beat this disease, and put it on the refrigerator and look at it every day. And I had a little piece of paper, and at the top of it, it said, I will write and publish a novel. And so then, when after about a year in remission, I started to work on some novels, but I realized that I had been doing everything on my own for so long. I actually didn't know exactly what genre meant. I admit this now. People would say, well, what genre do you write in? And I'd think, I don't know what they're talking about. And I'd say, well, I write books with, female protagonists that's, on a trying to find her personal power or something. Well, I know better now. I've been to a lot of writing conferences and workshops. So that's way back in probably 2020, 2021. But um, I, or really 2000, 2001. Wow, it's a long time ago. But at any rate, what I started with was thinking I would write more women's fiction. I didn't really know the definition of it, but I would kind of write what I imagined, but I kept leaning towards having my characters do have some more suspense, little bits of tension, little bits of suspense. And so as I started taking workshops or going to conferences, I realized and learning about tension points and better how to do a better plot arc. I started to think about what I read as a child and what I like to read, and I realized that I like to read in multiple genres, and that I really prefer to write in a couple voices and also to mix or have cross genre. So then a big gap of time. I published two books in 2015 and 2016. The 2015 one isn't really out for sale anymore. And the 2016 book I revamped last year and put it back out. And so it's more women's fiction with domestic suspense. But then a big gap of time went by because then I was working a lot of jobs, and then I fell into cybersecurity, which were long hours. So What Lies We Keep came out a long time after my 2016 novel, but I worked on it for 4 or 5 years. And that's the first time that I felt like I had the courage to really go after suspense and put cybersecurity in, and sort of write what I would like to read. And then Wired for Magic, I took it even a step further, and I'm probably in three genres there: women's fiction, magical realism, and thriller. So I don't I don't really pick the genre when I do it, but I see it evolving as I write, and I know that it's reflective of what I like to read. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You actually worked in cybersecurity for the longest time, and then you kind of have infiltrated that mindset into your books. Um, why choose to write about cybersecurity and have that be kind of one of the main center focus or kind of the element in your novels?
So at first, I probably had been in the profession for a number of years, and was writing What Lies We Keep. And because I wasn't technical, I built education programs and I understand a lot of the tech, but it was my job to explain technical concepts to employees in a way that they could understand. I wasn't sure I should dive into that area, although everyone I worked with was very technical, but it seemed like it would fit in the plot. And I had this character, Ted, and I needed a profession for him. And I just felt like he was going to work in cyber. And so I tried, it was really an experiment of sorts with what Lies We Keep. And it worked really well. Now, I would say that I'm not committed to putting cyber in every book that I write. I come up with characters start rising up in me and ideas and a plot, and I'm more of a pantser than a plotter. So I'll start writing and I may think that I'm going to put in cyber and it may not work, or I may think, oh yeah, I'm going to have a lot. Like with Wired for Magic, I thought she was okay. I think I'm going to have her have a white hat hacker brother. I just needed a brother who was technical and didn't believe in magic. But as I went along, I tapped a few of my friends for white papers on deepfake, started reading a lot about deepfake, and decided, okay, I know where I want to put this in, and it's going to be really fun to do it. I'm working on a sequel right now to What Lies We Keep. And I initially decided to put a good bit of cyber in there, but I have backed up a little bit. It probably will have digital wallets and some money laundering. So that's the spoiler there. But it's not going to have more cybery characters or white hat hackers or things like that in this. It'll be a little more a story of Leah and Charlotte. If anyone read What Lies We Keep, I don't want to make spoilers, but Leah was a character who got herself in a lot of trouble, and I wasn't going to write a sequel. And Charlotte was her friend, but I went 3 book clubs asked me to write a sequel, and because they wanted to know what happened to Leah. So I use this as an example because I went in and I thought, well, What Lies We Keep had a good bit of cyber. And so I'm going to have to do that again, but it didn't work. So if I think it's not going to work, I don't use it. And if I think it will work, I think any sequels or series that I do with Wired for Magic, it's probably always going to have cyber because one of the characters, 2 of the characters work in that profession. Um, so I think that would be a given, but I may write other things where I say it just doesn't fit anywhere here because it's not going to work if I purposefully kind of shove it in there as if it's my brand. It only works when it naturally seems like a good fit and flows with the plot line.
Do you think bringing cybersecurity to a main audience will kind of have people talk about it more? Do you see it as kind of a underrated topic and kind of an underrated discussion?
I think it would be interesting to have that discussion. What I have found that has surprised me, because, really most novels have sort of similar tropes, and there's not a lot that's unique. I did know that most use of cyber was in film or in sci-fi, so I knew that I was doing something in more of a contemporary fiction, in a way that wasn't being done a whole lot. I won't say it isn't because Ruth Ware wrote Zero Day, and there are people doing this. But I have found that mixing genres and having cyber in there means that people can't quite see the shelf that it sits on. That would be especially true if I were querying for agents. I think it would be really hard for me because they want, and even people, readers, writers groups, agents, they want to label it with a genre. You asked me, what is your genre you write, and so that's a normal question because the people are like, what's your genre, what's your label, what's your lane that you're running in. And I don't have one lane, and when I add the cyber, I make it more complex. So what I find is I'm kind of on my own shelf, and when people find it, they're very interested and they want to talk about it and they want to ask questions. Um, what Lies We Keep is really picking up in the Pittsburgh area. It came out in 2024 with a small press. I didn't have a good experience, so I took the rights back in 2025 and I republished it. Same content, new book jacket, and I run everything. And so this year, at a couple book festivals and a couple bookstores that carry my books, I've found people walking up to me saying, I heard about this book. I heard about this book, and it's selling a little bit better locally. So I think that maybe the conversation is picking up. And when I go to book clubs, they want to ask me about the characters. They don't really ask me a lot of cyber technical questions, but they are interested in whether I'm going to take on different topics that are hot out there. The problem with using cyber, it is why it's problematic and why it would be hard for me if I had an agent in a traditional publishing route, is that it changes so quickly and it grows and it advances and it morphs out into other directions. So if I use it, I try to pick things that may not be exactly the same, but they're going to age a little bit better than some others might. So this has been my goal, is to try to pick things that probably aren't going to go away, even though they might be more advanced 5 years from now than what my book would be showing.
So when it came to the publishing process, how did you want to go about publishing your novel and going that route? Did you want to send or do it kind of in a way that was self-publishing? Did you want to work with a traditional publisher, or how did you go about publishing your novels?
Well, way back in 2015, I wanted a traditional publisher. I wanted an agent. I wasn't really getting good responses, and I definitely wasn't connecting myself in where I was in a group that taught query writing and things like that. So, but I did go to some conferences in New York, and I had a couple where I submitted pages and got accepted to a conference and made a few friends there. So I traditionally every year would go to a conference in New York and meet a friend of mine, where he and his wife are friends there, and they live in Long Island. And so he and I would go for a day to just a conference. We'd pick a different one every time. And we went to a conference at Brooklyn University in probably 20, I don't know, maybe before I would have published. So it's probably maybe 2012 or something like that. And it was called Slice because there was I think a Slice magazine. And so first we were in front of a lot of agents, and some of them said things like, if it doesn't move me in 5 pages on the F train, I'm not interested. And then we moved on to some panel discussions with editors from publishing houses. And I will never forget what one of the editors said. They said, well, we'll buy maybe 10 books, then we'll sit and have a meeting. We'll decide which books get the most marketing money, usually based on their platform, whether they're well known, how many followers they have. And then the other books will get a certain amount of marketing. And if the book doesn't sell in the time that it takes yogurt to go bad, then we stop putting marketing money behind it. And I remember thinking, why would I give something I worked on for years, worked really hard on, to these people? Not that I'm against the publishing industry, but that's what I thought at the time. Maybe I should just do this myself. So I did self-publish the first 2 books at a time when there was not the resources that they have today. You had to pay somebody to like format the book, and you had to pay for all kinds of different things. But I found places to find editors, developmental editors, copy editors, book, where to kind of crowdsource a book jacket designer. And I did all of that myself, and I got a website. And so I had this scaffolding that I built and self-published these 2 books, realized that I worked this 50-hour-a-week job and I had no time to market. Didn't do too bad. I mean, they sold and everything, but not great. And then I was in my job and just working whenever I could on What Lies We Keep. But by the time I came back out with that book, the independent publishing industry had changed a whole lot. So initially, I didn't want to do it all by myself. So I pitched it to a couple small presses, and one small press, which was woman-owned, and I really liked their vibe. They said that they would give me a hybrid publishing deal. This is something I probably would not recommend to people to do, but I did do it, and I was all ready to publish my book published. And 2 months later, they sold it, the whole press, to a young couple who were very nice, but they'd never done it before. And so I found myself 2 months out with a book that, I needed help with. And I also had my brother, a family member, who was having his life crash in a big medical issue that I was, like his medical point person. And so it was a pretty rough first year with the novel, and it kept winning awards and it kept not selling. And I felt like I was doing everything myself because they were still learning how to run a publishing company. So what I did when I went to take the rights back was that I took my contract to the Authors Guild and asked the legal team there, what do I need to do? How do I take rights back? And I went and talked to a number of authors in Women's Fiction Writers Association who had taken their rights back for their books and republished them. Because I said to myself, I built that whole scaffolding. It's a little old and might need some tweaks and updates here and there, but I don't have to start from scratch like everybody else who starts to independently publish. I can take that and build outward from there, my own platform, and learn to do things on my own. So I dedicated I took the rights back, but I also dedicated maybe 6 months to hiring a book coach for a couple months to teach me how to advertise on Meta without losing like all your money because you don't know what you're doing. And then also on Amazon. And then I got Vellum and taught myself how to lay out the book myself. And I got Publisher Rocket and learned how um, to decide what keywords to use and what phrases to use to better market. And I did a lot of that kind of work. And then I republished What Lies We Keep with a new book jacket. And I will tell you, it's selling a lot better. And also, I can see where it's selling. I have transparency because it's up on my platform, not up on the publisher's platform. That doesn't mean I'm against having a publisher or having an agent. It just means that between thinking if it took me a year, 2 years to get an agent to take me on, and then it took them another year or two to get a publisher, to take the book. How current would my cybersecurity elements be? And did I want to wait that long? And did I think it would work for the type of novels that I was writing? So now I'm set up. I have my own LLC, Pennsylvania LLC. It's called Porch Swing Publishing, and I have all the softwares I need to do things on my own. I periodically would like to have an agent, but my sales I think they would judge me by sales. So I'd have to really, have some high sales for that. But I'm okay whether I have that or not. So really, I made this serious choice to be an independently published author in, 2013, 2014, and self-taught myself how to build the business. And then didn't want to do it, but ended up feeling like, okay, I have to come back to this, but it's not so bad because I already have the platform built. It's just a little dusty and rusty, and I need to take it back and make some changes. So that's I think it's about control. I don't know if I'm a control freak, but I ran global programs, and so I knew I could run this myself. I would have liked to have run it, with a agent maybe, but at the same time, I belong to some really smart writers groups, and I get on calls with people, and we exchange information, and a lot of them are independently published and putting out really, really good work.
So your books have all received numerous awards for since they've been released. How does it feel having your books get this amount of attention and be able to be recognized?
It feels really good. I would tell you with What Lies We Keep, my self-confidence was pretty low. And I was struggling with, new owners to my publishing company and, family, personal, medical stuff that was going on. And so I thought, okay, if I apply for 10 book contests, I might get one. This was my thinking. So I kind of put it out there in a number of book contests, and it started right away. I was a finalist for the Hawthorne Award, and then I was a finalist for something else, and then I started winning. And I think what it did for me was that my early books didn't sell that well. And I worked really hard going to conferences and self-teaching myself. I don't have a MFA I've never really taken a creative writing class in the sense where you get a degree or you take, a semester's worth of classes. And it validated for me that I'm a good writer, that I produce good work, and that it has value, and that I felt much more confident after What Lies We Keep won so many awards. Wired for Magic is out there for a few awards. It has not been, it made finalists. There's a couple others it didn't get picked for, but it also is very different. And so it doesn't fit easily. When you sign up for an award, make the application, there's obviously genres and there's categories. Some of them have gotten more advanced and said cross genre as a category, things like that. But mostly I have to pick one of the three for Wired for Magic. So I take a risk, and maybe I'm picking the right categories, and maybe I'm not. I'll find out this year.
Now, going forward, what are some things that you are hoping to achieve and would like to accomplish in the future?
I really would like to. I would like to turn Wired for Magic into a Rowan Legacy series where I actually do a series. And I would also like to lower, I have been lowering advertising that is expensive, so I was trying everywhere and the return on investment wasn't coming from a lot of places. So I would like to simplify, if that sounds, because sometimes I feel like I'm spending all kinds of time working on marketing or um, uh, things like that. And I would really like to simplify and have better blocks of writing time and produce more work. So I have really, since I retired 3 years ago, it's like somebody turned on the faucet and I have way more ideas than I have time to write or can produce. So I would like more time to slow down and continue to write good work, but really, really take well, I took my time with the other ones. It took 4 or 5 years for both of them. So I think maybe simplifying my life and also what I'm doing with the writing, and do marketing when I can, but really just be more focused on putting out good books.
So to anyone listening, if they would like to become a writer themselves and write real passionately about something that they are really passionate on, what advice do you have for them of how they can become a very successful writer on a topic that they are really, really passionate about?
So I can't speak to nonfiction because I don't do that. So what I answer will be fiction only. I would say a couple things. First of all, find a writers group. It's even better if it's local. Sometimes national groups have local chapters. I belong to Pittsburgh Sisters in Crime. I belong to Women's Fiction Writers Association. And join and get to know people and go to their conferences and take some of those workshops. And all those will help you work with your craft. At the same time, really just sit down and write and get some things out on the page. I can tell you that I will probably I always go through at least 5 to 7, if not more, revisions on a novel. So I've never met a person who sits down and writes an entire novel and it's amazing. It's a lot of hard work and learning craft. So if you have a group that you belong to that has conferences and they bring in speakers and they have workshops, that's going to help you a lot. If you have a local community college that maybe gives an inexpensive, no credit creative writing class, that would be really helpful for you. It helps not only for craft, and helping you organize your thoughts and get them on paper, but also for confidence and networking and connecting with other writers. Writing is a rather solitary thing, so helping yourself to make a community of other writers, and then those people, writers, can read your work and give you good critiques. I mean, if your mom says it's amazing, then it's going to really hurt when you send it out to an agent or somebody and they're not interested. So you need good people doing the same thing you are to be your beta readers and your critics, and have a critique group of people that you work with.
Janet, thank you so, so much for taking time to come on the podcast today to share your story and to share your books and everything with my audience. For people interested in learning more about your books and would like to learn and keep up to date about any upcoming projects that you have coming up, where can they go to learn more information and where can they go to follow you?
Sure. I have a website. It's called booksbyjanetroberts.com, all written as all one word. I do have a common name, so I'm not Janet Louise Roberts. That's another person. I'm booksbyjanetroberts.com, and I'm located in Pittsburgh, so you'll know if you get there and you see that. I also, my books are on most places that you would shop: Amazon, Barnes and Noble, bookshop.org. If you're in the Pittsburgh area, they're in a couple local bookstores, Woolly Bear Books and Stay Books. And then you can also follow me on Substack. I have a Substack called Let's Start with Coffee. And periodically, I put up cyber tips on a separate tab and book recommendations. But mostly once a month, I write an article, sometimes because I traveled, sometimes about my books. And if I have a book coming out or something new happening, for instance, I just went to Montana to do research for the sequel that I'm writing for What Lies We Keep, because most of it will be placed in Montana. And so I came back and I offered some pictures and I talked about my self-made writing retreat and what I was trying to do, for the book and everything. So following me on Let's Start with Coffee on Substack, it's free. I don't charge. There's no upgrade, where you pay. You can just follow me, and if you don't like it, you can unsubscribe, and I take no issue with that at all. So those and Instagram. I'm at Janet Roberts 77 on Instagram, and I do post a lot there if I'm going to be in an event or what's going on with my books. Now, I will say if a book club reads any of my books, then they should contact me through my website or DM me on Instagram, and I will speak to the book club either via Zoom or if they're within driving distance or something reasonable, I'll go there in person to talk and answer questions and talk about my books with them.
And I will put all of her information in the description box below, just so check the description box in the show notes to find links to her website and all of the socials that she had mentioned. Feel free to follow the podcast on the socials. You can reach out to me on Instagram and TikTok at southern.reads. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Noah's Podcasts. And feel free to also check out the website, noahspodcasts.com, to learn more about this show as well as the other shows that I do. uh, Feel free to follow or subscribe so you get notified of when new episodes like this come out in the future. Thank you so much to everyone for tuning in to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great rest of your day. Be safe, and I'll catch you in the next episode of Southern Reads.